Welcome to our podcast, Evolving Educators. My name is Donda Slayton, and I'm a new Caney ISD campus administrator. And welcome, Chris, our producer, Chris Hurst.
Hey, Donna, it's so nice to be back on the podcast with you.
Yes.
All right, so you know what? We haven't had a podcast in a while. What are we talking about today?
Today is one of those topics, Chris. Again, I feel like I say this every time, but this is a great topic that will really help new principals and maybe even some veteran principals that haven't really explored this topic much, but it's about emotional intelligence. Control your mind, master your feelings, Chris.
That is so important as a leader, but I can think of that being important for any position you could possibly hold in any career.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I've been, when I was speaking with our next guest about this topic and reading about emotional intelligence, it actually has now become, over anything else in the business world, the number one thing that an employer will look for is a high emotional intelligence of a person. And so, how we respond to things, it's that thing, Chris, of, life is just 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you react to it.
Sure. Well, who's joining us today?
So I'm very excited about this. My friend, Luissana Davis, she is going to join us today. She's been in education 15 years. She is the seating principal, the current principal at Brookwood Elementary. And she's been in the district a while. And what I love about her, Chris, she started off as a paraprofessional. She was multilingual, emergent bilingual paraprofessional. She moved her way up. She was a teacher, a dual language teacher. She was an EB coach. She's basically done a little bit of everything. And she was an assistant principal at Brookwood. And then she now is serving Brookwood as the principal. So we're so excited to have her.
I can't wait to have her on. I have a very similar story to her, starting as a para, and it helps your lens a lot if you've worked more than one role in education.
Oh, I would agree. I've served in multiple roles, and I can tell you, speaking of emotional intelligence, it helps you go back and forth because you've had so many experiences.
Absolutely.
So I love that. So this topic became very passionate to her after a master's program that she completed. And this was a project that she had completed, and it was new to her. And so she just started reading more about it. And just like you said, Chris, thought, oh, this is something everyone needs, not just leaders and school professionals.
All right. Well, I can't wait to have her on the podcast, and we'll talk to her as soon as we get back from our break.
That'll be amazing. Okay, welcome back. We have Ms. Davis here with us, and we are so glad you're here, Ms. Davis. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm extremely excited to be part of this today.
Yes.
We're so excited to have you today.
Yes, this is a great place. We're here at West Fork, and it's just a good vibe in this library. We love being here. So let's just start off. I loved your topic of our discussion today: control your mind and master your feelings. And so this is something, Ms. Davis, we've been talking about at the Aspiring Administrator Academy for a little bit of time now, that we're thinking, that this is something that needs to be incorporated more, the idea of emotional intelligence. So let's just start off by just talking about discussing emotional intelligence and what's the importance of it and what makes it so relevant today.
I think it's very important because, on the role that we have, we represent more than ourselves and our school. We're representing our district.
Oh, that is so true. And it's important because these are things we don't learn in school. And so it's so important that we make sure we're representing ourselves and, like you said, the district.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking back when I did my master's degree, I was like, they should have a class on how to, develop your emotional intelligence, because it's going to be a key part of your role.
Yes.
When you encounter situations that are unexpected, that are, situations that may trigger different type of responses on your end, then you need to make sure you have the tools to see how you're going to handle those.
And these things aren't anything we can practice. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's situations that come up. You and I have talked about some funny things that have happened in the past. And so the way we respond to the situation is so integral to our role and our credibility, don't you think?
Yes.
I mean, if we respond a certain way when a teacher has a meltdown or a parent has a meltdown, what do you think that does to us professionally?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's going to have a ripple effect because first your staff is watching the way that you respond, the community, your supervisor. So, we are a public figure. So everybody is watching the way that we behave and the way that we respond. And when we think about emotional intelligence, I always think about, we have to be proactive and having tools. And instead of react to a situation, we're going to respond to it.
Oh, I love that. So not reactionary. That is a very good point. What are some tools you can think of to help an aspiring leader or even a new sitting principal? What are some ways that we could hone in and maybe fine tune our emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. I think that self-awareness, being reflective on situations and how we react to it, and just being aware of it. I think being aware, emotional intelligence is not about not having an emotion. It's about the intensity of your response.
Yes.
And, it had to be adequate to the situation that happens. So, let's say that we have a parent that is upset and it's on the front office, you're going to have a reaction to that, a response to that it's going to be different that if you have an emergency situation in the building and you have to evacuate because there's a gas leak or something,
Sure.
So you have to be able to balance that. So I think the number one thing is to start by having self-awareness and understanding what are your emotions. And, we also have all those background stories that are going to be triggered by certain things. And the better you know yourself, the better you're going to be able to respond.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, but it's true. Having a good, keen self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And how we respond to things and having those variety of experiences. I like what you said, Ms. Davis, about, reflecting on situations. I think something else that's important that would help, because I know I call you for things. We all call our peers. And so how helpful is it, do you think, that you have someone in your corner that you can call and tell those things that you may not be able to say out loud, right?
Absolutely. So one of the things I always think after I became a principal is that, I didn't realize it's so lonely. Once you're there, you have to find your people. People are going to relate to the situations that you are having in your building and with your staff, with the parents, and then you have to find your people that you can trust and then that you can, just call after school and get it all out and, make sure you have a safe person that it's going to be your sounding board.
Yes, that's so important. And I know that's something we try to stress, we do stress at the Aspiring Administrator Academy. We make sure that they network and find those people. Even I know in your field, Chris, for sure. I mean, you have to have a person. You're the person in charge of
Absolutely.
a certain role.
Absolutely.
And so it's difficult to work alone.
One of the oldest expressions is 2 brains are better than 1. And that's
Yes.
exactly true in this situation. And when you become a new principal,
Yes.
having someone that you can kind of relay information with and grow together makes both of you better.
Yes, it's imperative. If you can't, if you don't have a trusted person where you can say, hey, this happened to me today, and this is how I responded, or this is the steps I took. What else could I have done differently? So talk to me about that reflection piece.
So I think that an important advice I receive is that even, in any job that you get, you need to be able to know when you don't know and ask for help and understand that it's okay. It's okay. We're not going to get the job and know it all, but you need to be able to ask for help and don't feel like, oh, if I call this person, they're going to think that I don't know what I'm doing. Being confident. I mean, the best way that we can grow and learn, it's from our peers. Just like we are doing when we're teaching, when we're coaching, when we become principals, the best way to learn is from other principals. Are, find the people that are having success and then, ask them, what will you do in these situations? And one of my mentors always said, if you were to live through that situation again, what would be something that you will have done differently? And a lot of the time, I have to, take my time to think about it. Because if I think that everything that I did is right, what is the one thing that I could have done differently that it's going to help us to have a different outcome?
I love that, because it's really it's that time of reflection after it's over and you have, calmed down from the situation, and it does give you a different perspective when you're calm and you can just say to yourself, okay, so this is a situation, I did this, what else could I have done? And even just that time of self-awareness, self-reflection by yourself could be a valuable part of the whole growing process, right?
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes we don't realize that as a leaders, having the wrong response can be fatal for the success of your career. You can lose your job by having the wrong reaction, the wrong response to a situation. So it is crucial that we develop these skills and we are aware of our emotions, and we start a self-reflection system with it daily when when they go well. When things go well, when things don't go well, what we could have done differently to improve that.
Yes. Well, the Aspiring Administrator Academy, again, one of the things we talk about all the time is that you're always on an interview. So part of that emotional intelligence could also be being gauged by others in the role you're in now. And so you can't really wait until you're sitting in the chair to develop this emotional intelligence. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think it's crucial that we know that when we say you're in an interview every day, we mean like even when you go to the grocery stores, the way that you behave with the community, the way that you behave in social media, the way that we portray ourselves to the community and everything, it is important. I think the next step after the self-reflection, it will be the self-regulation. So now that what are the triggers and the reactions are you having, then how are you going to manage those emotions? So it's not about not crying for a bad situation, but it's about managing when it's the right time to have that response, for how long, what is the intensity that response needs to have, and being able to regulate and manage those.
I love that, Ms. Davis, because it also reminds me of something a mentor told me is, and figuratively, of course, but okay, Sladen, you get 5 minutes to cry. And then what are you going to do about it? Emotional intelligence now, I've read in Forbes and in other magazines, emotional IQ now is really what the employer is looking for. So a person that is coachable and responds appropriately to situations, can really can be taught anything. And so especially, in a school world, we believe that of anybody that we can teach them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing that I would say it's a very important skill that needs to be the forefront. It's not something that's taught in school. No. So when you're going through your master's program or even learning to be a teacher, very little is talked about, self-regulation or how are you going to manage your emotions, those kind of things.
And I think sometimes we tend to think that this emotional intelligence or the self-regulation, it's only for kids. We're incorporated the SEL into our lessons. It is important at school. We dedicate time for it. We just, the Spider administrators have to remember that this is also for adults. We need that. We need to reset. We need to step to the side and take a deep breath. And, we need those coping skills as well, just like the kids do, because that's something that is teachable.
Yes, that's a good point. And it reminds me of when I was doing SEL lessons, our 7 mindset lessons. After I would start the lesson and I would be with the kids, but in my mind, I was thinking, oh, that's very good advice, and so that's one way we could even get our own training is while we're teaching our SEL lessons. We should be talking to ourselves, right? And so what are some other ways? You talk about self-regulation. What are some ways then that the aspiring administrator, or maybe even you, Ms. Davis, what are some things you do to decompress and to make sure that you're keeping the balance?
Absolutely. I think making sure we have self-care. We have a plan for self-care and we make ourselves accountable. Again, find that person that is going to keep you accountable for, balancing your work with your personal life, staying healthy, having a safe person to talk, having a safe space to go, and then, whatever is your favorite activity. I used to joke that my love language is music. So when I feel that I put the right music at the right right time, and that get me going. I think that these tools are also going to help our aspiring administrators to develop more empathy. Once you have self-awareness of your emotions, and when you start, understanding how you're going to do self-regulation of your emotions, then you can develop more empathy for the situation, because we always assume good intentions regardless of the situations that we encounter. So these tools are going to help us, and we know that empathy, it's very important for a leader to have, to make sure that we are leading our school and our community.
A mentor once told me that we have to, when someone maybe is just going off on you, or a situation is happening, immediately just think, what is this unmet need? What is this about this person? Because it's rarely, if ever, about us, right? It's something else that has triggered that person. And then it might not even be the topic at hand that they're angry about, but something that happened even prior to that. So trying to understand the person's motivation behind their reaction will help me regulate.
Absolutely. And just to think of, it's not personal.
Yes.
And when I thought about a topic that will help aspiring administrator, I was thinking, what is that one thing I wish somebody told me before I got this job? And I keep thinking about, this is not a topic that is taught at school. Nobody, you get your master's degree, they never talk about this stuff. And then when you get on that chair, then you get from every angle, because you have to handle difficult situations with the students, that you have to, separate yourself to go back and be a mom and a wife at home, because you can't carry that with you. So, it's obviously, it's like an extension of what happened in the classroom. I remember when I became a teacher, I took every problem of my students home. So then I have to learn to, I care and I love them, but I have to leave it at school, because I still own my family to be a mom and be a wife and be a daughter. So that is where the self-care comes in place, to make sure we separate that.
That's so true. And making sure our loved ones are also getting a good part of us, right? And not the worst of us. No, I love that.
Yes.
So, what are some ways we could improve? Let's finish up with, what are some ways we can improve our emotional intelligence? Just some distinct steps. The first thing that sticks out to me, though, what you said was the self-care. Certainly we have to take care of ourselves. What are some other ways that an aspiring leader can start putting that to the forefront? So we've learned, and we're going to learn about leadership and those things continuously. But knowing now how important emotional intelligence is, what are some ways that we could make sure that we are not forgetting that important piece when we're trying to get a job?
I think the more we read and learn about it, it's going to help us find our triggers. Oh,
I like that.
Everybody have different background stories and different areas that, they're going to be triggers for you. And sometimes you don't find out they are until something happened. And then, that's going to help you to know what your blind spots are. And then you can make sure that you surround with people that are going to complement you.
Oh, I love that.
So, the beauty of the diversity, you don't want people that are going to, yes, ma'am. You want people that are different, that coming with different skills and different tools that are going to complement you, and they're going to, cover those blind spots that you may have. So,
oh, I think that's amazing advice. Yes. And so those things are so important. One of the things that, as I was just reading some more about emotional intelligence while we were getting ready for this, Brene Brown is, one of our district's favorite. I know several of our supervisors that, speak about her often, but she says, there will be times when we feel like we don't want to be in the game. And she says, stay in the game, be uncomfortable. And so that still speaks to that emotional intelligence. I mean, we're going to be uncomfortable. We're not going to want to do this some days because it's so hard, but we still have to maintain our composure. We have to self-regulate, know what our triggers are, so that we can be the face of New Caney ISD and put forward that good help our students.
Yes. So sometimes, when we have a CBA, we have to look at data, and then we always have to, remember the data is just information, and it's hard not to have our feelings. And how do you, are you happy or sad? And then I have to tell myself neither.
Yes.
This is data. What are we going to do with that? It's really important. So as a leader, you're showing your emotional intelligence when you get those, CBA scores back, and then you're having those discussions with your staff. Well, we are just looking at the number, and then what worked and what didn't work, and what are we going to do about it? With a very neutral.
That is a great example, Ms. Davis, and it reminds me of when the times I've looked at data, and what I've observed from some of my staff in the past is I will put up the scores or whatever we've done, and they immediately have a reaction, but they're waiting to see how I'm going to respond. So they're not really sure what reaction they're going to get from me. And so the first thing they may want to do is, oh no, this isn't good. And so they're waiting for our reaction, aren't they? Have you had that experience?
Yes, absolutely. And I have to remind myself, specifically thinking about, testing and data, and that we have to walk the talk. So if we're telling our students that, that score does not define you.
Oh, and we do.
And then we tell our staff that score does not define you, then we have to model that.
Yes.
So when we get those scores again, then we remember that, it doesn't define you. What are we going to do about it? So then, having an action plan, but having a response to that, it is okay.
Well, our friend John Wink says you spell data FEAR or HOPE.
Yes.
And so when we spell it hope, then we show them the facts. And then we're very solution focused. What are we going to do about it? And that speaks right to emotional intelligence. So of course we're human, and we're going to have certain reactions to things. But just like you said, it's the intensity of that. Where is the space that this has happened?
Absolutely.
Is it in front of your staff, or is it in front of a parent? We have to be so very self-aware. And so I love what you said about just taking our time, developing those skills, making sure we have peers around us. And that's just great advice today.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. This has been a great discussion.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we loved having you on the show. Do you have any quotes that you'd like to leave our audience with?
All things are difficult before they're easy, by Thomas Fuller.
I love that.
It's so true. So true. Well, thank you so much for joining us. When we come back from our short break, we're going to have an exit ticket section. We'd love to have you stay in and give your advice on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, we're back from our break, and this is one of our favorite parts of the show where we answer some exit tickets. All right, today our exit ticket comes from Miss Kara Cavanaugh Woodard, a local Gator here at West Fork. And she asked, what was SEL or socio-emotional learning like when you became a leader? And Dr. Slayton, I think we should start with you on this one.
Oh, that is a great question. Because when I started in the classroom, and even when I started as a leader, I really wasn't sure what that was. And so that is, to me, it's a relatively new topic. Very important for students, but like Ms. Davis pointed out, something that we need to start thinking about the adults in our building too, though. But social emotional learning is, to us, especially at New Caney ISD, really only evolved after COVID. And so, and we started with 7 mindsets, but that's a relatively new topic. And so I'm really glad, though, that it's in the forefront, because we do know for our students and for our staff, but employers are looking for a person that has an emotional IQ.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I think the district, it's on the right path.
Yes.
As a new leader, a new Caney ISD, I have get the support, and I see how they're putting more and more systems in place with our MTSS to make sure we support not just our students, but also our staff regarding anything that have to do with the mental health.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it takes me back to MTSS, Ms. Davis. SEL is so much more, Chris, now. Mm-hmm. It is part of the whole system. it goes down. I mean, social emotional learning even comes down to the classroom management piece.
Absolutely.
And so not just how are you feeling today, right? It's so much deeper. So then I even think of at the beginning of this, when we started, it really was about how are you feeling today? How's it going? Have you been fed? It's those basic needs. Of course, those are still important, but it's evolved now. And it is a part of the classroom management. It's a part of the whole system of the school. It's the whole child. And so before I can teach you, I have to make sure all these things are in place, right?
Yes.
So I think that's such an important thing.
And I think the district is being proactive and taking measurements to make sure there's system in place to also support our staff as well.
Oh, absolutely. We have so many resources available to our staff and students. And I'm really proud of that. So when I've had staff members in the past that just need some extra support. And so the counselor came and I was just so proud. I remember the first time I saw that a staff member needed some support, some extra support. They were going through a difficult time in their life. And the counselor said, the district has some resources. Let me help you. And so our campus counselors have been amazing to be able to identify when a staff has a need. Mm-hmm. And so the district is so supportive in that. So we have resources for our adults in the building as well as our students. Mm.
Yeah, and that's so important. So important. I know, for me, when I started as a teacher, I helped implement SEL practices at a campus, and there was a lot of pushback from teachers, but then the longer that it went on, the more the entire campus bought into it. And then post-COVID here in New Caney, I kind of experienced the same thing. And then now I think that a lot of people are seeing the value for the campus as a whole.
Sure. And don't you think really, Chris, it was at the beginning, it's something that's so new. And certainly we never talked about social and emotional learning. Or if you do, you need to be careful what you say, those kinds of things. And so people just are starting to understand how important this is.
Yes, and I think it's funny because a lot of the time, I personally at the beginning, wasn't sure how the implementation was going to go because we were so concentrate on the academic part,
Yes.
And then kids come to school to learn how to read, write, and do math. And then that's, but once, they change that we have seen in the students and their performance and their overall well-being once we're taking care of the emotional part. Yes. And now even we're MTS, or RTI, we look at the behaviors. It's not just how they're performing academically, but how are they behaving, and is the behavior affecting their performance?
Absolutely. And Chris, it even comes back to attendance has changed. And what I mean by that, though, when I first started, if you were absent, you're absent. And that was it. Well, now when we see that a student has a history of an attendance, issue or absences, we respond not punitively from the beginning, but we respond of, I wonder what's going on with this student. Yeah. I wonder, how are they okay?
Sure.
Why are they not at school? So it's looking at it a little bit differently.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your feedback.
Thank
I hope that really answered your question, Miss Kavanaugh Woodard.
Thank you, Miss Kavanaugh Woodard, for submitting your question to us.
And you know what? We really appreciate you coming on the show today. We're so glad to be able to continue this Evolving Educators platform and really spotlight all of our various leaders in the district. And
this
we really loved having you on.
This is a great topic, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. It was an honor to join you guys today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll catch you guys next time.